Hey, all, welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited to have you here today. Our guest is actually a friend of mine from college. Her name is Megan McAllister. She is a spitfire, to say the least, and she's not afraid to speak truth and stand up to people that are, misinformed and to educate on things that are maybe uncomfortable with society. She is willing to put herself out there for the better good, and I absolutely admire her for that. I can't wait to have her on here talking a lot about animal agriculture and just what it feels like to stand up for yourself, stand up for what you believe in a little bit more so that you can actually make a difference in whatever it is that you're trying to make a difference in. So I'm really excited to welcome her on here. Can't wait for you guys to hear what she has to say about everything and hope that you have some amazing takeaway points to apply to your own life and whatever you're trying to handle yourself. All right, you guys. All right, here she is. This is my friend Megan back from college. Haven't actually seen you in person in I don't know how long.
I
Um,
know, only online.
right? It's all online. This is the only time that I'm grateful for like Facebook and Instagram because otherwise I would not know where you ended up. But anyway, this is my friend Megan. I'm going to let her introduce herself because she is that Spitfire I was telling you about, but I want her to talk about who she is, where she's from, what she does.
Well, hello. I just feel really honored that Nikki asked me to be on her podcast. I'm like, of course I'll do it. Like that sounds awesome. So thank you first for having me. Um, so I am Megan McAllister now. I guess Nikki knew me in college. I was Kregel. But I went to college. I got a degree in dairy science and mass communication from Iowa State University, and then entered a career within dairy industry. I was in communications, I was in marketing, worked a lot with the public and consumers, did that for about 7 years, and then returned to my family's home farm. Um, was there for about 4.5 years. During that time, I was dating my now husband. Of course, we got married and had to decide what farm we're farming on. So we farm on his family farm instead of mine. So now after all of that, now I officially live in Dubuque County in Northeast Iowa. And we dairy farm and milk about 270 cows and farm roughly 600 acres. So we stay pretty busy with that. But Nikki, and thank you so much. I feel just again honored and privileged to be here. But Nikki kind of asked me to be on because I do a lot with social media stuff regarding dairy farming, which I think if you told me 10 years ago I would be doing that, I would think no, I'm not. But but here we are.
Yes, here we are for sure. I mean, I Megan is awesome, right? And she's very straight, shoot from the hip, right? And I don't know if you've always been like that in college. Apologies are a little blurry for Nikki, if we're going to be honest, right? Lots of late nights at Outlaws. But I know that you're kind of a straight shooter. You straight like right off of whatever you're feeling. It's like straight from the heart. You're not really afraid to say it because it's what you believe in. It's what you're passionate about, and it's what your background is in. So have you always been extremely passionate about agriculture? I feel like I know the answer to that, but do say.
Yeah. Yes, I've always been very passionate about agriculture. Like that was a no-brainer for me. I grew up in it, and I think you can attest to this too, that it's just very much in your blood. It's something you can't really just get away from. Especially when it's dairy farming in particular. I feel like you're either like in it all the way or you're out because you're like, this is not a lifestyle I want. Like, this is way too much effing work. Like, no
Mhm.
way. But for me, I did all those dairy things as a kid. Like I was Little Miss Squirt, I was a dairy princess. I did the quiz bowl and the dairy judging. And of course, that like continued into college. And I was a state dairy princess and did all those things in college and was in the dairy club. And so, yes, it was always a passion of mine and was always there for me. But yeah, I had no other passion like this, I guess, is how I would say that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, obviously, you have passions for other things too, but this one is your main one. I mean,
Yeah, for
it
sure.
makes sense and it shows through like clear and clear. There's zero question.
I mean,
Um,
I have a giant cow on my.
I love that. Okay,
Very
so
large.
yes. And the fact that you wrap your social media stuff, and we're gonna put your handle and stuff in here so people can follow you, because I have a lot of farmers that do work with me and follow me, but I have a lot of non-agriculture people as well, and I think that'd be helpful to get your word out there more. Um, and what you do, because what you do isn't just like confrontational, it's educational. And I think that that's the biggest piece. You're not just putting up a fight and being angsty, right? You are literally just fighting against the people that are trying to put down your industry. And I admire that. So, what kind of sparked that? Like, was it the mass communication thing that sparked it, or was it just a random comment on something that sparked it? Where did it come from?
Yeah, I would say I always got feisty about that stuff. You know, there's kind of the OG creators online as far as like advocating for the dairy community. You know, it was Dairy Carey and TDF Honest Farming, Derek out in Oregon. You know, those are names that have been very concrete for, 10 plus years advocating for the dairy industry. Um, I never thought I would be part of that group. Like was not in my plans. And then this little thing called COVID happened. Which honestly didn't change my life very much because guess what? The cows still had to get milked every day, chores still had to get done. Like we don't really go many places anyways, so it was like nothing changed.
Yes.
So um but like 9 months into COVID or something, it was the fall of 2020. And I kept getting sent like funny little TikTok videos that other people in ag were creating. And I was like, well, these are hilarious, right? And so then I downloaded the app and just kind of like scrolled for a while. And as the app started to learn me, started seeing a lot more ag content, of course, and was seeing a wide variety of stuff about commodities, even specialty crops, a lot about other livestock industries, but not so much about dairy. And I was like, maybe this is an opportunity um, to just try it, right? And I told myself right off the bat, I'm like, if this is just going to be something that's full of hate and I'm just going to get lots of negative comments, and it's just going to be a bash on dairy. I was like, I'll just quit it. Like it's not that important to me.
Mhm.
Um, Posted my first couple videos in September of 2020 and they did really, really well, like right off the bat, which I think they try to trick you with that a little bit. Like, oh, let's like, feed them this little carrot and they'll keep coming back. And so well, it worked. Um, but they did really well. And honestly, the comments were so positive for one and inquisitive, I would say, for the other part. Of course, there was hate, but it was overwhelmingly in the other direction of like, tell us more. I always wondered about this, like how, and even the most basic of questions that you and I, of course, know the answers to, like, how do you tell the difference between a male and a female? Or like, are all your cows female? Or like, how do you keep your milk cold, like things that are just common sense to us. You think the normal consumer doesn't know this, right? We've seen calves born and I don't think you ever get immune to it. I think there's always kind of a wonder to that to seeing life be born, but it's just amazing to them. It's something they never ever would have seen before. So the fact that there was so much positivity and so many questions, I think it really fueled me to continue forward. Um, but of course, with that came quite a bit of the negative comments as well. And I have to be honest, like I was not this strong, confident person today. Even in college, I wasn't. That definitely took time for me to evolve into this person that I'm really proud of and that I know I can handle myself in a way that I want to be represented and is respectful, but at the same time isn't giving up to any of the bullshit either. So it definitely, I think, comes with age a little bit and a little bit with wisdom. Some of our fine lines and wrinkles are proof to that, but it's all good things. So, um, yeah, that's a little bit of the journey, I guess. But it was a learning process to be able to not take the criticism so personally.
Yes, and I can relate to that heavily, right?
Yeah.
Like, in my world, said I'm posing there with my shirt off for it,
Mhm.
sports bra on, thank God. But like, let's be honest, like we both have taken a lot of that hardship, and I'm so glad to hear that the majority of the comments for you and me as well, positive. We do have the haters though. You do get those negative comments and they do dig a little. And it takes a while to get hard about it because people just they're keyboard warriors, man. Um so I still really struggle with confrontation personally. Like it still digs at me a bit to be totally honest. Does it dig at you still or are you like armor at this point?
I think I got a pretty good coat of armor at this point. For I would say the vast majority of comments. There's some like actually more recently, like within the last year, that was a really hard one for me. Somebody wrote a comment. They made a complete fake profile, like went to the effort of like following me for a few months, like randomly putting super negative comments on my videos that were very like personal, like they had to have known us personally to know certain things about us, created this fake profile, and then bombarded me with really long comments and really long messages personally attacking us. And that one hurt. But at the same time, I'm proud of the woman I am today. Um, you learn through every hardship you go through, and you're able to sit back a little bit and think, now, why would someone do this? Like, it really, yes, they're taking all that anger and all that frustration out on me, but honestly, I don't think it really has anything to do with me, right? Like, I think this is a them problem. This is not a me problem.
Mhm.
Um, so it takes time to develop that for sure. And when the comments are more personal like that, and it has to be somebody who knows you personally and is still like digging at you this hard, like that hurts a little more. But in general, it's like most of them just bounce right off of you. There's always, I think, some that stick out more than others that you're like, oh, I'm going to use that as a learning opportunity. Like, thank you for giving me that golden nugget of content that I can make something on and will just do really well. Like,
Yes. Yes, those are the best ones. One that sticks out in my mind, it was like a jab at your husband about you though. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about, but they were like somehow saying like, "Gosh, I bet my husband's even or your husband's even afraid of you," or something like that. Do
oh
you remember
yeah,
that
I
one?
remember that.
That one stuck out to me. I'm like, "Really? You're
Yeah,
attacking her husband?" Like, yes, your husband's in some of the videos, but you do the majority of it on your own. I just
yeah.
love the way that you handled that one. Because, like, you guys did one together, and he's like, "Nope, nope, not afraid at all." I don't even remember, but I cannot believe that there's somebody that went through the extent of creating a fake profile to attack you, and knowing that they probably know you personally is it's just sad that that's where society's gotten, that they
Oh,
take
for
the
sure.
time to do that, and then personally attack you or personally attack your husband, and God forbid, like, what if you guys have kids at some point and then they go after your kids? Like, that gets real ugly real fast.
Yeah, and I know there's plenty of creators in the ag space that have had to deal with that, unfortunately, like threatening comments towards their children, which I don't, I that would be like next level. I don't know. I can't speak to that of what I would do, but that would be hard, way
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah, it gets hard when people, like, judge or question your parenting or make threats towards your family or your children. It gets rough. So, I'm glad you haven't had to go through that yet, but I do have to say when you get to that point, it's probably gonna happen. So, yeah, I don't know, but it's crazy, and then knowing that, like, you've taken jabs like that, but I do have to agree, I love the way that you take those certain jabs and you turn them into more content. Right, and you call that person out, and let's be honest, the fake profile out because they're not man or woman enough to have their own name on there. So that's
Oh, for
something,
sure.
right? It's totally fake, but it also allows people to see you become even more confident. And I also have to point out the fact Megan's not on there when she's doing these like replies, like saying screw you or anything like that. You're literally so poised in your responses that it's like your next level with your wisdom on top of it. So I love the way that you respond to him. You might say screw you off the camera, and I'm sure you do if I know
Oh
you.
yeah, for
But
sure.
you don't do it on the camera, right? And that's not the point. Like, you are willing to stand up to bullies, and this is for anybody. You're willing to stand up to these bullies and to these people that are online and handle yourself. And I think it's just a great example to show. So kudos to that is basically the long-term way of saying that, you know? Um, it's
Yeah, for sure. And that's a learned thing too. Not that like I never, it was always a priority for me to, even the most negative and vile of comments, to make sure to treat that person with respect. Like I have no problem calling them out, right? Like, but you can still do that in a respectful way while staying true to yourself and while maintaining your boundary of I'm not standing for this and here's why you shouldn't either, right? um and it's a learned thing. Definitely some of those harder comments I have to like, screenshot the comment or save the comment to like come back to it later and just take a minute and say all the curse words off camera and then come back and be like, okay, now that I've had some time to get that out of my system, this is how I would respond to that person because I'm not just representing me, I'm representing all of dairy. I'm representing women. I'm representing females in ag. I'm representing any sector of ag, right? Like, because that's what it comes down to, is that we're all in this community. Um, and you just got to think a little bit bigger picture.
Exactly. Please listen to that one again, you guys, because there's so many of you that are in these confrontational situations, whether it be in agriculture, whether it be, in education, whether it be just at your regular job or with a spouse, even. Like, you're able to be not necessarily the bigger person, but just a more poised version of yourself. And when you are in more control of your emotions and responding to any sort of situation, you're representing not only yourself better, but you're representing anyone that you're involved with better. And I think that that's just a really hit home point. So thank you for that. Um, I do have to ask question 4. Um, what is your long-term goal with continuing to educate the public on animal agriculture and the misconceptions placed on it? Like, do you have a game plan? Is this growing? Do we just sort of fly by the seat of our pants? What does it look like?
I again, college is a blur, right? I think for both of us. But um I am OCD planner. I am OCD, like everything gets written out, like to-do list, like that's how my mind works. But that's not how my mind works with this, unfortunately. I am like the future of the social media component is very, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, I guess. I've been at this for um 3.5 years now, which is kind of wild, but I don't know. I guess the goal is to just continue to grow and continue to spread the message. My first couple of years were spent exclusively on TikTok when I joined. TikTok is not a place that you can monetize worth a damn. So um, then came the introduction of Facebook and Instagram in the last year and a half or so, and that has certainly broadened that capacity that, okay, hey, maybe this is a little bit something more than just putting in all this work and effort for free. So there is a bigger bonus there and potentially partnering with some brands or companies to be, an affiliate or a spokesperson or something like that. So there is more potential as far as earnings to make it a little more worthwhile on my end because it is like a whole nother full-time job.
Mhm.
By no means is this super easy or super lucrative. um, but the future, I don't really know, to be honest. I get asked a lot of like, well, how are you going to put in all this time and effort, like if or when you guys have kids? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like, once you have kids, it's like a whole next level of crazy. I'm sure you can attest to that. Um, but you also just make it work too, right? Like you just find new ways to balance things out and make it all happen. Um, but it's okay to put something to the side too, and that's everybody's personal thing. But I don't really know what the future is. Right now the goal is to just continue to grow, continue to put out videos I enjoy. You know, sometimes I used to be super hard on myself of I gotta post every day, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I was much more structured about it. And I have to say, especially in the last couple months, I've given myself more grace than I used to in recognizing like, hey, my body is exhausted, or hey, like my mind is not in the right headspace right now. And that's okay. And I like sometimes we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves either. And that's I know that's really difficult when we are the go go go, the very driven person, the OCD person. Um, but that's just as important, and it's certainly better to take that time for yourself than to put out shitty content or do a half-ass job at something. So it's certainly, I'm still learning myself as I go, I think.
Yes. No, and I think that that's really refreshing to hear too, because I too used to be very much like I knew exactly what I was posting on social media every single day. I'd record it and get it ready the day before, do all this editing, do all this. I have a general idea now
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, but that's the thing too, if you make it too OCD-ish, we lose our passion through it, right? And now we're just posting to post, and it's not really coming from the heart anymore. It's just coming because we feel like we have to. And people can like feel that, you know? So just like you, I've backed off. I don't make myself do a post on Saturday or Sunday anymore unless I want to. Because girl, kids, oh, kids. My life is crazy with the kids. And so I give myself that grace. And I think it's important that you recognize that too. If your heart is not in it for that day, or if your mind needs a break for that day, or you're just not feeling passionate about it that moment, it's okay to back off. And that's in anything, not just social media for crying out loud. This is in anything. So wonderful hit home point. I didn't expect to touch on. Beautiful. Um, I do have to ask on that. Okay, so clearly you've got this armor and you're very poised in your reactions and your responses, especially online. Have you ever been confronted in person with these types of things? How do you handle that in person? Has that ever been a thing?
Um, well, you can probably guess the answer to that is no, because nobody has the balls in person that they have online.
Yeah.
So no, not
Totally.
with hate, anyways, right? Like I've never been confronted with hate in person. I have been confronted many times, more times than I can count, with just we love your videos, like keep it up, like we look forward to them. You're being such a voice for, dairy farmers and women in ag, like, and that's what it's for. Like I could post a video that I think is going to do super, super well and that I put all this time into and I love it and it makes me laugh so hard, or it has such a great message, and it flops on social media. But it still resonates with other people, and that matters. Like just because it's not an awesome hit doesn't mean it still wasn't worthwhile. So no negative ones online. Sometimes there's just odd social interactions like
That's because people are
you're
just
kind of
odd.
like, oh, like, hey. um Ted, my husband, he gets recognized quite frequently. Like if we go somewhere that's, 100 miles out of our normal radius, he gets recognized quite frequently, and I never do, which I
That's
find really
funny.
ironic because I'm like, okay, granted, I don't wear like any makeup in my videos. I am farming, like I don't get done up to go farm like some people do, and that's great. Like do
Yeah.
what you love and what makes you feel great for the day. I don't. We get up at 3:30. Like I can barely put my contacts in, let alone anything else. So, um, but nobody hardly recognizes me. And I always said to Ted, I'm like, what the like I'm like, do I look that different? Like, I don't
It
think I
sounds like I'm
do.
a movie star.
I know. I'm like, what the hell? Like I do all the videos. Like why? So I don't know. That just is what it is. I think that's funny, more than anything. Of like, I guess I can get away with more shit then. But
Yes, you can. Okay, so knowing all of that, I have to also like I put this as a question in there. So, do you like there's a ton of boards and I know you're trying to make a difference and you always want your message to be heard. And I know that there's boards in like agricultural politic positions and things like that. Is that anything that would ever interest you to get involved in order to continue growing not just your following, but spreading your word and spreading awareness?
Yeah, I think for sure to a certain extent. Politics, no. Nope. No. I think if you really want to make a difference, you can make way more of a difference in your home communities and your home local counties, in those organizations versus, politics are politics and everything is slow and monotonous and that I feel like never goes anywhere. So no, I would much rather stay within my local communities to really make a difference. Um, so not politics. Ted and I are very active within Farm Bureau. That's important to us, which is a lot of ag policy stuff, and there's always a couple days at the Capitol, ag days at the Capitol, every year. They happen in like March and April, so they've already happened. But we very much believe in that and being able to advocate for our farming community that way. I am, of course, active within our dairy groups and stuff like that, and potentially would maybe serve on like a state board for something like that. But otherwise, no, I would keep it fairly local, I think. We are on the state committee for Young Farmer Committee through Farm Bureau, so that's a state thing. We have one more year term on that. And then I don't know. And then I think maybe kids, I don't know, like
Yeah.
life needs to get to that point. But I know there's never a good time, but there's certainly better times than others. So
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me. And then you're busy with that, and then you add 19 more things. You're like, I don't know where the time was before that I didn't think I had, but now I have time to do all these other things. It's crazy.
yeah. But I look at like the social media stuff and I'm like, I feel like I can make way more of an impact doing that. And I get to be home like doing that. I'm not traveling somewhere and speaking on a hill or anything like that. Um, or having to campaign. Like I'm reaching a million plus people every single month. And I'm just doing my work every day. So I think that's pretty incredible.
It absolutely is. And the more awareness, the better, because like I grew up on a farm near Chicago. Like we had like this piece of ground, right, where I had cattle and hogs and I showed at the fairs and everything, and people had never seen a pig before, right? Like they
Mhm.
had no idea what agriculture was. So the more people that you can get in front of, the better, right? And if that's social media and you live life normally, then that's great. And I love that you do things locally because I think people put that past them. Like they try and go to the next level too fast. And I think that you can make much more of a difference when you start here and that just grows and spreads out more. And I'm so glad that you're involved in those things. And you say that you're not involved much, but you just listed like 5 or 6 things. So you're definitely involved.
Well, not in politics anyways, but
Yeah.
like we just took calves to our local school, like and for to elementary classrooms. Like it's something so simple, but yet 90+% of the kids in that classroom would never see a calf otherwise.
Mm,
Like, and we're in a rural community. Like it is, they're gonna remember that forever.
mhm. Definitely. I was definitely the person I took my show cattle to school for show and tell day. Parents
Yeah.
trailered them in and everything. The most exciting part for everybody is when they pooped on the playground,
Yep.
right? Like this is
Yep.
what happens. But yes, that I feel you. Okay, so I'm switching gears just a smidge because I think this one's always fun to ask. What's your biggest pet peeve with people and the assumptions they have with animal agriculture? Or like what is the single one thing that you wish everyone could know about animal agriculture or dairy agriculture, whichever one you want to go on?
Mm. I think full transparency, I didn't really read your questions you sent me
Totally
because I
fair.
think it's better on the fly.
Yep. Hey, I'm the same way.
Um, biggest pet peeve, I think is just making assumptions versus just asking. I thoroughly believe there's no such thing as a stupid question. Um, like so just ask it versus assuming it. Like at this point, my pages, whether it be TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, like they've been around for multiple years at this point. Like anything and everything that is a taboo topic within the industry, we've talked about. Like there are no hidden secrets. There are no hidden agendas. There's no big dirty thing that we're trying to hide or glaze over. Like all the information is there. So
Mhm.
when someone comes on and they're like, I've been following you and you're lying about XYZ, I'm like, well, I'm not. And here's the video to prove it. We're not trying to hide this from anybody or what happens out here. So I think that's really important. So just ask would be my biggest like takeaway. And like we wouldn't work this hard to try to put garbage on your plate. Like we're eating exactly what we're producing too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something that people forget about too a lot is animal agriculture and animal farmers, they are consuming the food that they are producing. They're not going to consume poison if you think that they're poisoning you. And I think that that's a huge hit home point because there's so many people that are confused by marketing and politics and all the BS that goes into that. And that's part of why I wanted to have you on here because I want that cleared, right? Like there are shitty farmers, right? And there are farmers
Yeah.
out there that treat animals terribly, but that's not the case for most people. Most people are out there crying when the calf dies. Most people are out there like burying the poor thing. Or, that's what we did, right? We had a baby calf that died here last summer. We buried it, right? And we wrapped it in a blanket. And it was like this thing because we don't have a ton, right? I get it. It was Shay's calf. But it's animal agriculture is so much more. Like we treat the animals like they're our children. We wash them. Like we better take better care of the calves when I was a kid than my parents took care of us. If we're being
Mhm.
honest. So
Yep.
I want that to be out there. I want that message to be well aware because 99% of farmers, they don't not only give a shit, they give a bigger shit than most people care about their own kids. And that's something that needs to be known. And I know that that's how you feel too. So I wanted to make sure that that message got out there. I don't know if you want anything to add to that, but
Yeah, I would just echo that and second that. Like, we have to do this job 24/7, 365. Like those animals have to be cared for. Like they're our number one priority. Like we don't survive if they don't survive. So really it's that simple.
it really is. It really is. And animal agriculture is not cheap by any means.
No.
Like and people are not we're not going to put milk or meat or anything into the system that has any sort of issues with it. It all gets tested. If there's anything in that bulk tank that tests positive, you dump the whole bulk tank, and that's money literally down the drain for you. It doesn't make
Yes.
sense to do that, and people
Yeah,
don't
not just, yeah. So milk, all meat, everything's antibiotic free.
understand.
Even if our milk wasn't off temperature, like let's say like it took too long to cool down, we'd still have to dump it. Like, and that's all charted and is recorded on this temperature recorder chart, and it has to get looked at every day it's picked up. Like there's so many checks and balances in place. Like milk is the most highly regulated food product.
Mhm.
Um, like here's I still need to do a video on this, but I'll give you some preview, I guess, of
Perfect.
what I need to do. But so we are state and federally inspected, okay, multiple times a year. Our dairy needs to be inspected for those things. They're looking at everything for like milk quality, cleanliness, organization. Do we have like our temp recorder chart working, and do we have how many months on record and blah blah blah. They're looking at hundreds of things. We also get state survey inspected every couple of years, which is more connected with our co-op, but is still done by the state. So this is what I need to do a video on. So we had the state survey inspection and we got wrote up for having too much shelving in our milk house, which is beautifully organized. And it's been like that for years. Excessive shelving. And they didn't like that we had a sink in the parlor. And there was a couple other things that it's easier to show on a video. But I'm like, but nothing was dirty. You just didn't like it was very odd to me the things that they come up with.
Right.
And then like 2 weeks ago we had our actual state inspection and he wrote us up for nothing. So it's very very difference of opinions, but they can be extremely extremely strict even on the cleanest of dairies. So and none of that had anything to do with milk quality, right? Like if I have shelves that like Nikki was like the shelves behind you like are organized, right? And they're tidy. Like And that's what it looked like. And it's like, well, how's that a problem? Like, it's better than on the floor.
Right. What do you want from us? Like, and I'm sure you disinfect floors probably daily, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Like literally a dairy parlor, especially in, I'm going to use the wrong verbiage. I didn't grow up on a dairy, but milk house. Milk house?
Yep.
Okay. Like
Perfect.
literally cleaner than most people's kitchens. You could eat off of that floor and it's going to be cleaner than probably your kitchen counter. And yet you're going to go to like, sorry, but fast food and you're going to eat from the guy who's wiping his nose and probably scratching his balls between making your sandwiches. Like, let's be clear here. The dairy industry isn't the problem. Animal
Oh yeah.
agriculture industry isn't the problem. It this needs to be a thing. Like inspections like that should be as stringent for everyone, not just animal agriculture. But I do have to say, like, I can appreciate the fact that they are very specific. The sink in the parlor and the shelving is a bit ridiculous, I have to say.
I can agree. I can appreciate the strictness, which is fine, but it's proof to the consumer of like, hey, like this is milk quality is well, they're looking at way more than just like the specs of what the milk is coming out of that tank. Like it's everything that's around that tank that really doesn't even affect it.
Right. Exactly. And to put in retrospect, so, or perspective, I should say, and I know it changes per day, but today, say you had to dump your bulk tank because something was wrong. How much money just went down the drain?
Oh, let me math quick.
Calculator.
Yeah. We ship about 27,000 pounds of milk a day. Um, a gallon is 8.6 pounds. So we're shipping about 3,100 gallons per day, just to give people that perspective. But we get paid in hundred weights. So every 100 pounds of milk is how we're paid. It's a very complicated system.
It always is.
um, but we would be out like over $6,000 just by dumping one tank of milk.
Exactly. So take that for understanding because there's a lot of people in this country that don't make 6 grand a month, right? If you're listening to this, you don't make 6 grand a month, which is not bad. It's not a bad thing. But I want you to understand if you have an issue with the dairy industry and you think that they're going to put crap out, they're not going to take the chance at all to not have that milk test correctly and waste 6 grand in a day. Right? Take that and understand it because that is a huge loss. And trust me, dairy farmers don't have the money to just throw down the drain. We really
And
don't.
let's be clear, like that's only the value of that milk that we just wasted for the day. That's not the feed that had to go into the cows to make that milk, which they have to be fed regardless. That's not all of us getting paid for the day, which is still an expense. That's not the electricity. That's not the diesel for our tractors and skid loaders. Like all of those things still had to happen just to make that tank of milk that would have been wasted. So it's absolutely zero in our interest to do anything to mess that up.
Exactly. Exactly. And you had 277 cows, what you said?
Yeah, 280. Yeah, 270,
280.
280.
Okay, so 270, 280, right? So you're probably medium sized as far as like a home farm goes, or pretty large.
Yeah, I would say we're a little on the small end even. We are I'm a sixth generation dairy farmer from my side of the family. Um, Ted's side of the family, I think he's like an eighth or sixth, seventh generation farmer, I think, but technically third generation dairy farmer. Um, so it's I forgot where I was going with that, but it's in our best interest to always just do the right thing.
Exactly, in the best interest, because you think about that, and there's these larger dairies, right? And we're not getting into the whole like massive dairies buying out all the small dairies because that's just heartbreaking to hear about and think about. But those guys are certainly not going to do anything to jeopardize anything either. Because if you think 6 grand down the drain for a smaller size dairy like Megan, well, think about somebody who has 2,000 head, whatever, you know, sending all of that down the drain would be absolutely devastating. So I don't know if you have anything to add on to that, but I just want to hit home like people are not going to put something out there that's not going to be what it should be. So
Yeah, and I have no problem with larger farms. Like I understand, like they get a bad rap because everybody just wants to call them corporate, right?
Mhm.
Well, guess what? We're a corporate farm too,
Yeah.
and we're all family. Like, and those farms, 97% of farms are family farms. Like just because they have a business structure in place, like they're protecting multiple generations that are involved in that dairy and trying to make a living on it. Like we farm with one of Ted's brothers. Well, guess what? If another one of his brothers decided they wanted to come back and farm full time, we'd have to get bigger in order to sustain that. We can't have another person there without making more money in it, having a bigger income and growing the dairy or growing the acres in order to sustain another person. And that's why you see a lot of those dairies getting bigger is they're trying to accommodate the next generation. And unfortunately, things are just more expensive. Look at equipment costs. I
Mhm.
mean, anybody who's tried to buy a car or a house lately can understand that. Like, look at how expensive those things are compared to what they were just 5 years ago.
Mhm.
The cost to do any sort of business or have any sort of infrastructure is just outrageous.
Yes. It definitely is. And I love that you point that out too. It's not always a bad thing to have those larger dairies, but it just goes to show and hit home again, like people in the agricultural industry are not going to do anything to your food supply on purpose to make it not what it's supposed to be because the risk for what they would lose is just not worth it.
Yeah.
So just help that have that be reassuring to you is more or less what I'm after on that. Um I definitely do. I forgot you were on TikTok. I deleted TikTok a long time ago. So how are all the different ways people can reach you? Do you have a website or is it just the three social medias?
Just those social medias, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I think on all those I have a link tree, like if that'll go to an email if you really want to reach out via email. But otherwise, any of those platforms, it's at Megan Dairy Girl is the handle. Megan just spelled normal, no extra letters, Megan.
We're simple.
Yeah, keep it simple.
But before we leave, this has been so incredible. The last thing that I always end with everybody, regardless of the topic of discussion, what is one piece of advice you may give to someone that may be struggling to find their voice in a difficult situation or with a fear of judgment or confrontation? What's the one piece of advice you could possibly give?
Yeah. Um, I think, and it like I think just being true to yourself is the best piece of advice I could ever give. It took me a long time to get to be this more I'm rubber, you're glue type of person, that all these negative comments don't stick to me. But it took a long time and a lot of practice to get to be that person. Um, and I certainly lost myself along the way, through high school, through college, through the person I am now. It took a lot of work to become this person that I'm really proud of. And I think that you just try to stay true to you. Like I know I did things in the past that I was just doing it for other people or to try to please other people, and it wasn't really serving myself. And guess what? I kind of failed at those things. And then I was mad at myself because I failed. Like it didn't help anybody in the end. So just stay true to you and what your goals are and how you want to be aligned. And be confident in your decision making. Like you know what's right in your gut and in your heart, and to follow those things. Um, I think I want to add a little bit of something in that don't be afraid to ask for help. Um, Ted and I have had a really hard last year and a half. His mom got sick, and we unfortunately lost her to cancer. And that was really, really, really difficult. She was kind of the heart and soul of the farm. And a lot of really hard conversations had to happen because of that. And I had to ask for help and talk to somebody outside of my husband, outside of my family, outside of my friends, that could maybe advise me more. And I had to talk to a therapist. And I know that's can sort of be a taboo thing, especially within agriculture, but it has certainly helped me to get into a better headspace and remain this person. And I think to my earlier points, like learn how to give myself grace and not be so hard on myself.
That is amazing. I'm so sorry. I did not realize that that happened.
That's okay.
but goodness, that's not easy for anybody. I dread the day that that happens to either side of our family as well, because my mother-in-law and my mom are the heart and soul of our farms as well. So I fear for those days, and I empathize with you 100%, and so proud of you for being able to, do the taboo thing, because in agriculture especially, farmers, they're stubborn and they don't want to ask for help and they don't want to have somebody inside their head, but sometimes you got to have somebody in there to help you clear out the junk that's stacked up. And if it's like talking to your husband about that kind of stuff in that moment just doesn't make sense for him because it's just as hard. So kudos to you, proud of you for doing that. And you seem like you've got it all together like usual. I know you're
I don't
probably
know about that, but
some days you're probably like, oh, but like you're doing really well, and you're setting an incredible example for not just agriculture, but women, for yourself. I think you're staying true to yourself. You're as beaming as you've ever been. And I'm proud to call you my friend, that's for sure.
aw, thanks, pal.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you were here. I can't wait for this to come out and have everybody listen to it. But I'll have people reach out with any questions, and just thank you again for everything.
Yeah, thanks. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Bye, hon.